Now, moving on to the topic of absolute and comparative advantage. Now, these definitions actually have completely different meanings, although they're both referred to as advantages. So let's take a look. Absolute advantage refers to when one person is able to produce a good or service or perform a given task with fewer resources than another person. So, for example, fewer resources could be the number of hours you're required to produce a certain product, or maybe even the material that you use. You could end up using a small amount of materials to produce exactly the same good. So, for example, if person A is able to produce, let's say, a lollipop in 1 hour, whilst a person B is able to produce the same lollipop in 2 hours, then person A clearly has an absolute advantage in lollipops over person B. Comparative advantage, on the other hand, refers to when one person's opportunity cost of producing a good or service is lower than another person's opportunity cost of producing that same good or service. So we learned how to calculate opportunity cost in the previous slide, so determining which person has a comparative advantage would be quite easy, right? So something aside of that I wanted to mention about these concepts is just an example. So let's say a situation where person A has an absolute advantage in producing lollipops and chocolates over person B. This means that person A can produce both lollipops and chocolates in a shorter period of time than person B, right? So would it be efficient to make person A produce both lollipops and chocolates whilst person B produces nothing? Now, the answer to that question is no. So I'll tell you why through explaining the principle behind comparative advantage. Now, the principle of comparative advantage refers to the principle of each person, country, or party concentrating on the activities for which their opportunity cost is lowest. So, in the previous question, I asked person A could have an absolute advantage in producing lollipops and chocolates over person B, right? However, person A should actually only specialize in one area by comparing the relative productivity levels for each product, or costs, you can say. So, this process is actually known as specialization, which is a process carried out in order to ensure that limited resources in this world are allocated and used in the most efficient and possible manner so that everyone is able to gain the best benefit out of the limited resource. Now, let's look at an example of the comparative advantage concept. So Mary can collect 1 kilogram of apple in 1 hour and 1 kilogram of orange in 2 hours. It takes Samantha 4 hours for her to collect 1 kilogram of apple or to collect 1 kilogram of orange. Now, the answers are in this table just below, but I'll just go through how we derived those answers. So, we can see that to calculate the opportunity cost of producing 1 kilogram of apple, you have to divide the number of hours required to produce the apple by the number of hours required to produce the orange. Now, in Mary's case, you can see that it's 1 divided by 2, which is why we've got half there. For Samantha, we can see that it's 4 divided by 4 again, because it takes the same amount of hours, i.e. 4 hours to produce 1 kilogram of apple or 1 kilogram of orange. So in that case, it's 1 kilogram. Now moving on to the opportunity cost of oranges, you would have to divide the number of hours required to produce an orange by the number of hours required to produce an apple. So in this case, it's 2 over 1, which is why we have 2 kilograms. And for Samantha, it's going to be 4 over 4, which is 1 kilograms, because it takes 4 hours to collect either apple or oranges, right? Now, just then we use the input method, but as I showed you earlier on in the opportunity cost slides, we can actually calculate through the output method. That should give you exactly the same answer, 0.5 here, 1 kilo here, 2 kilograms here, and 1 kilogram there. Now, so as we calculated, and as you can see in the table above, Mary has a lower opportunity cost in producing apples, and Samantha has a lower opportunity cost in producing oranges. So remember that the principle of comparative advantage states that you must take the action with the lowest opportunity cost. So that means that Mary should specialize in collecting apples over oranges, and Samantha should specialize in collecting oranges over apples, just regardless of the fact that Mary would take less amount of hours in producing both goods than Samantha. Now let's discuss about how trading would work according to the theory of comparative advantage by using the example in the last slide. So Samantha will buy apples as long as Mary's price is lower than her opportunity cost of producing apples. Why? Because it will be a lower cost to buy apples of someone else than to collect it herself, right? So similarly, Mary will sell apples at a price no less than her opportunity cost for apples. Why? Because you want to maximize the amount you sell it for so that you can earn a profit. If the price of apples is less than Mary's opportunity cost for apples, then she would be losing value in a sense. So you can see from the example we just talked about, trade is only going to occur when the price of apples lies between zero point 0.5 kilos and 1 kilogram of orange in this case. Now moving on to example 2, Oliver and Nellie produces two products, cloth and wine. The rates of production can be seen in the table shown right there. So the question here is asking for which product Oliver and Nellie should specialize in. So to find out this, we need to calculate the opportunity costs in order to determine where the comparative advantage lies in. Now to do this, we have to re-express the table in terms of our input requirements. Now, we didn't actually have to, but usually it is easier to calculate your opportunity costs using input methods. So we'll just do that for this case. So we can see that it costs it takes 1 hour to produce 2 meters, right? So that would be the same as producing 1 meter in half an hour, right? So basically here we've got everything in terms of hour. Now here we've got everything in terms of the actual material. So how much of 1 unit of the material can we make? So how long will it take to produce one unit of that material? Yeah. So now the opportunity cost of producing cloth for Oliver is 2 liters of wine, right? Because it'd be zero point 0.5 over 0.25, which is 2. While the opportunity cost of producing cloth for Nelly would be 5 because it's 1 over 0.2, which will give you 5. So the comparative advantage goes to the agent with the lower opportunity cost for a specified good, right? So in this case, Oliver has both an absolute and comparative advantage in producing cloths. Now, Oliver's opportunity cost of producing wine is zero point 0.5 meters of cloth, while Nellie's opportunity cost of producing wine is zero point 0.2 meters of cloth. We can see that because we just divide the opposite way. So it'd be 0.25 over 0.5 and 0.2 over 0.1. So from the comparison of the data, it can be seen that Nelly has a lower opportunity cost of producing wine, which is 0.2, right, compared to 0.5. So he definitely has a comparative advantage in producing wine. So we can conclude that Nelly should produce wine in order to gain the benefits from specialization.